The Young and the Restless Spoilers. The secret meetings. Diane and Michael's cloaked conspiracy. Genoa City's rumor mill has been buzzing. Diane Jenkins and Michael Baldwin have been seen meeting repeatedly over the past few weeks, always in hushed tones and out-of-the-way corners of society and the GCAC. Fans speculated they were plotting to overthrow Victor Newman either through legal maneuvering, scandalous exposés, or even a literal takedown. But the true secret they share is far more explosive and far more personal. A love revisited and a legacy unveiled. Beneath the veneer of corporate intrigue and family rivalries lies an old flame reignited. Years ago, Diane and Michael shared a passionate, if brief, affair. At the time, both were entangled in their own battles, Diane fighting to reclaim her reputation from the Newman clan, Michael striving to prove his worth as a lawyer undeterred by his family's checkered past. Their relationship flickered bright, then burned out under the weight of their competing ambitions. Now, out of that union has come a secret neither could have anticipated or desired. In the privacy of locked conference rooms and late-night cafes, Diane and Michael revisited their past, not out of lingering passion, but out of necessity, as they grappled with the consequences of a DNA test Diane recently unearthed. The bombshell DNA reveal. The moment of truth came when Diane, tear-streaked and trembling, handed Michael a sealed envelope. Inside was the result of a paternity test neither had ever imagined they would see. Kyle Abbott is Michael Baldwin's biological son. Diane, her voice breaking, confessed she'd carried the secret for months, grappling with guilt and fear. Michael's reaction was instantaneous fury, anger at Diane for withholding the truth, anger at himself for past indiscretions, and a deeper rage at how this revelation threatened to fracture multiple families. Diane, sobbing, Michael, you have to do the right thing, for Kyle's sake. He deserves to know who his father is. Michael, shouting, you should have told me sooner, Diane. How could you make me bear this alone? But Diane had been paralyzed by the stakes. If Kyle learned the truth, what would it mean for his identity, his place in the Abbott dynasty, and his relationship with Summer Newman? And how would Jack Abbott, Kyle's adoptive father and longtime Newman rival, react to this seismic shift? Michael's dilemma, responsibility versus ruin. As Michael storms out of their clandestine meeting, the weight of the secret presses on him. He's a lawyer by trade, and by conviction, committed to truth and justice. Yet here he stands, with the power to rewrite a young man's past, alter the balance of power between the Abbotts and the Newmans, and potentially scandalize two of Genoa City's most prominent families. Michael's mind races through the possibilities. Own up to Kyle. Claim his role as biological father. In doing so, he could forge a real father-son bond, providing Kyle with answers to lifelong questions about his mother's sporadic absences. But the fallout would be devastating. Jack Abbott would feel betrayed, Summer Newman might feel her family torn apart, and the Newman-Abbott feud could erupt with new ferocity. Stay silent, keep the secret for now, allowing Kyle to maintain his place as Jack's son. This protects current alliances and spares Kyle confusion, but it condemns Michael to a lifetime of guilt, and leaves Diane vulnerable to blackmail or worse. Negotiate a delayed reveal. He could strike a deal with Diane, delay any confession until a strategic moment. But every day of delay intensifies the moral compromise, and the risk of exposure, whether through Jack's suspicion or an anonymous tip, inches closer to certainty. Michael's characteristic moral compass is spinning. His legal instincts urge transparency. His protective instincts fear the chaos honesty would unleash. Meanwhile, Diane presses him urgently. Diane, if you refuse to stand up and take responsibility, I will have no choice but to force your hand. I won't let him grow up without knowing his father. Jack's growing suspicion. A cage of lies tightens across town. Jack Abbott has noticed Diane's furtive phone calls and Michael's tense visits. The ever-observant Abbott heir, seasoned by decades of corporate warfare, senses a cover-up. At lunch with Summer, he mentions, Jack, something's off with your mother. She's been distant. And I spotted Michael skulking around the GCAC more than usual. Know anything about that? Summer, protective of Kyle, dismisses Jack's concerns, yet Jack's instincts are hard to ignore. He begins his own quiet investigation, reviewing call logs at Jabot, checking security footage at the GCAC, and even deploying a friendly private investigator. Each clue suggests a clandestine alliance between Diane and Michael, but the motive remains a mystery. The closer Jack gets, the greater the pressure on Diane and Michael to concoct a deception. They consider a diversionary scandal, a false rumor that Michael is digging up dirt on Victor for Diane's benefit. But Jack is no fool, such a ruse would rebound. Instead, they craft a more elaborate plan: redirection, leak a false story to the tabloids hinting at Michael's affair with a new, completely invented character, diverting attention from any Abbott connection. Buffers, enlist mutual friends, like Lauren Fenmore and Phyllis Summers, to publicly affirm Michael's loyalty to his marriage and his respect for Jack, reinforcing the facade. Crisis play, stage a faux crisis at the law firm, positioning Michael as overwhelmed by a high-profile case, thereby explaining his hasty departures and emotional volatility. All the while, Jack edges closer. He warns Summer to watch Kyle for signs of confusion, and even suggests running a DNA test himself, though diplomatically citing concerns about inherited medical conditions. Diane and Michael steel themselves, one misstep, and Jack will have the proof he needs. The impact on Kyle and the Newman-Abbott feud. While Diane and Michael wage their secret war, Kyle Abbott remains blissfully unaware of the true stakes. For him, life is a balancing act between Summer's burgeoning fashion career, Jack's corporate expectations, and his own search for identity. Learning that Michael, his mother's one-time lover and a man he respects immensely, is his biological father would upend everything. Emotional fallout: Kyle would feel betrayed by Diane's decades-long silence. He'd question every aspect of his childhood, from the late-night visits to Abigail to the endless family dinners at Jabot. Family rift: Jack Abbott, hurt by the deception, could react with extreme measures. Ostracizing Kyle, pursuing custody changes, or even cutting him out of the family business. Newman leverage: Victor Newman would exploit the turmoil mercilessly. He'd see Kyle's vulnerability as a wedge to drive between the Abbotts and to expand Newman Enterprises' influence at Jabot's expense. Deceptions and desperate measures: as the web tightens around them, Diane and Michael realize that their only hope is a bold gambit. They must preempt Jack's DNA test by planting a different alloyed proof, something that absolves Diane of blackmail risks and positions Michael as the hero rather than the betrayer. Their plan involves forging medical records that indicate a hereditary condition common to Michael's side of the family but virtually unseen in the Abbotts. By revealing that Kyle may need specialized treatment, one only Michael's genetics justify, they hope to make Jack see Michael's paternity as a benevolent necessity, rather than a betrayal. The risk is enormous. If the records are uncovered as falsified, Diane and Michael will face legal ruin, and no court in Genoa City can offer them sanctuary from Victor's wrath. What to watch for next? Jack's DNA test decision: will Jack move forward with covert testing? Or will he be deterred by Diane and Michael's diversionary tactics? Kyle's health scare: watch for the first hint of a medical concern, a feigned symptom, a doctored lab report, that Diane and Michael will use to justify their ruse. Michael's moral crossroads: will Michael's conscience tip the scales? A private confrontation with Lauren or Phyllis may force him to choose truth over subterfuge. Victor's intrusion: Victor Newman never misses a family crisis. Expect him to smell blood in the water and insert himself, offering help that carries a hidden price. Diane's breaking point: can Diane continue carrying this secret? Her breakdown, possibly on the society patio, could unravel the entire scheme. For Diane and Michael, the stakes have never been higher. In a town where secrets become weapons and loyalties shift like quicksand, the revelation that Kyle Abbott is Michael Baldwin's son could redefine Genoa City's power structure. But first, they outwit Jack Abbott, manage Victor's inevitable interference, and, above all, decide what kind of parents they truly wish to be. As the DNA results loom, one question lingers: will the truth set Kyle free, or will it shatter every bond in its path? Stay tuned. Victor's shadow play, eavesdropping and unraveling secrets. No one knows the Newman psyche quite like Victor himself, and lately, he's been proving it. Unbeknownst to Michael and Diane, Victor has been tailing Michael's every move, his suspicions aroused by their clandestine meetings. Hidden behind half-open doors and digital bugs, Victor caught Diane's tearful confession and Michael's anguished admission that Kyle Abbott is, in fact, Michael's biological son. Now, armed with this explosive knowledge, Victor holds all the cards, and he's already begun to press his advantage. Michael's quiet terror. Michael Baldwin has always prided himself on integrity, but this revelation has left him paralyzed. The idea that he fathered a son years ago, only to abandon him, or keep him in the dark, cuts deeper than any legal battle. Yet Michael cannot bring himself to acknowledge Kyle publicly. He fears the immediate fallout, family upheaval. Michael dreads how Jack Abbott will react, not as a rival lawyer this time, but as a deceived father and husband. Kyle's world. He worries that revealing the truth would shatter Kyle's sense of self, upending his place in the Abbott dynasty and his relationship with Summer. Community chaos. Michael knows the tabloids would descend like vultures, dragging both families through the mud. Driven by dread, Michael has retreated inward, avoiding Diane's calls and spending late nights poring over legal precedents. Searching for any sliver of a loophole to protect himself, his son, and his career. Victor's calculated threats. Victor Newman never misses an opportunity to strengthen his grip. With knowledge of Michael's, and Diane's, weaknesses now in hand, he's begun to weave a subtle campaign of intimidation. Selective leaks, insider whispers have already surfaced at Jabot, murmurs of an Abbott heir with questionable paternity. Jack, ever the watchdog of his company's reputation, has launched private inquiries into corporate records and employee rumors. Boardroom blackmail. At the last Chancellor Board meeting, Victor sat unusually quiet, his gaze locked on both Diane and Michael. By the end of the session, no one could say what he'll do, but everyone knows he could expose the secret at any moment, sparking a hostile takeover bid or swaying key investors. Personal ultimatums. In private, Victor has cornered Michael, warning him that any move to legitimize Kyle would trigger a chain reaction. Michael's legal career could collapse, Diane's custody rights could be challenged, and Kyle could be completely shut out of Jabot, fired on the spot to avoid scandal. Victor's mastery lies in his patience. He isn't unleashing these threats all at once. Instead, he leaks small hints, just enough to keep Michael and Diane off balance, constantly fearing the next blow. The looming Jabot explosion. Should this paternity bombshell escape the closed rooms of Newman Ranch and GCAC, the consequences for Jabot could be catastrophic. Boardroom rift. Jack Abbott's trust in his colleagues and family would evaporate. Factions within Jabot's leadership could splinter, some siding with Jack's sense of betrayal, others viewing the scandal as an opportunity to curry favor with Victor's burgeoning influence. Investor panic. Shareholders loathe uncertainty. Rumors of hidden heirs and family secrets could send Jabot's stock tumbling, priming Newman Enterprises for a stealthy takeover. Kyle's termination. Under pressure to contain the scandal, Jack might feel compelled to remove Kyle from the company, both to protect the brand and to distance Jabot from further personal fallout. For a young man building his career, the loss of his position would be devastating. Diane and Michael's desperate gambit. Trapped between Victor's iron will and Jack's impending suspicion, Diane and Michael have only one path left, a counterstrike born of desperation. They're racing to secure leverage. Diane is digging through old contracts and personal effects, hoping to find any legal document, prenups, wills, previous custody filings, that could force Jack or Victor to tread carefully. Forge alliances. Michael has reached out to a handful of loyal colleagues, possibly Lauren Fenmore or even Ray Rosales, seeking allies who will stand by him if and when the truth emerges. Craft the narrative. They plan to preempt the scandal with their own statement. Michael will publicly acknowledge paternity in a carefully staged press conference, framing it as an act of love and responsibility rather than deception. The hope is to control the story before Victor can weaponize it. What to watch for next? Victor's next move. Will he goad Michael into a rash admission, or wait for the perfect moment to strike? Jack's investigation. Keep an eye on Jack's closed-door meetings at Jabot. You may notice new figures in the boardroom or an abrupt change in the company's legal team. Kyle's fate. Will Kyle sense the gathering storm? Look for scenes of him overhearing fragments of conversation or facing unexpected disciplinary inquiries at Jabot. Michael's public statement. A special episode teased breaking news footage. Anticipate a live press conference where Michael must choose between honesty and self-preservation. Family showdown. Expect a tense, possibly explosive confrontation at Newman Ranch. One that could redefine loyalties and reshape Genoa City's power balance. As the walls close in on Michael and Diane, and Victor tightens his noose, Genoa City stands on the brink of its most turbulent chapter yet. The question is not merely who will emerge victorious, but whether any family can survive the revelation that Kyle Abbott's legacy is far more complicated than anyone ever imagined. Stay tuned for the fallout, because in Victor's game, the next move is always his own.